order the May 1st regular meeting of the Littleton City Council. Roll call, please.
Whoops. Mayor Brinkman? Here. Mayor Pro Tem Stallman?
Here.
Councilmember Beckman?
Here.
Councilmember Cernanik?
Present.
Councilmember Cole? Here. Councilmember Taylor?
Present.
Councilmember Valdez?
Present.
Okay, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, Council, are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, the agenda stands as published. Minutes from the study session of April 10th. Any changes?
I had submitted to the city clerk a few minor adjustments
Okay.
previously.
Anything other than that? All right, those are approved with the changes submitted by Councilmember Cernanik. Minutes from the regular meeting of April 17th. Any changes?
I have one amendment.
Okay.
On page 13, page 13, line 412. I'd like to insert, Councilmember Cole said that the only reason she was supporting this on first reading without a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Board, as she believed city code requires, is that council had approved inclusion in 2011 contingent on purchase by another potential buyer. And I've given that already to the clerk.
But you didn't say that, though.
Yes, I did.
Said that in the meeting?
Yeah.
You didn't say all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think I said?
Not that. I didn't think you said.
Isn't that on? I mean, it's on the tape.
It's on the
right?
tape.
It's there. It's there. Yeah.
Did you check that, Wendy?
I didn't check it, but she did say it. I just don't normally put comments like that into the record, just because the minutes are supposed to be action
Minutes.
minutes.
But in this case, I thought it was important, so.
Okay, cool.
Any objections? Okay. Those will be amended. Okay. Reports, City Manager.
One thing I wanted to point out, last weekend was Earth Day, and one of the things that the city staff undertook was a recycling effort that was with the funds from the recycling of cell phones and that type of equipment. The money was donated to the Humane Society of South Platte Valley, and I don't have the dollar amount, but it was over several $100s, and then we kept more than 300 pounds of material out of the landfill. So, and then as part of that, O'Toole's Garden Center donates 2 big buckets of gardening type stuff to our staff who have demonstrated, and department who have demonstrated the most recycling green actions over the last period of time. And this year, the award went to the Information Services Department, and so they got to divvy up a nice big bucket of it. So it's a good, fun thing that our green team manages, and something that we're proud of, that we're keeping material out of the landfill, reducing our paper usage, our electric usage, that type of thing. Let's see. I'd ask if we can have a few minutes, if Public Works Director Charlie Blossom come down and give you an update on the dredging at Stern Lake. Could you do that, Charlie? Thank you.
Good evening, Council. There have been some questions raised about the condition of Stern Park and the completion of the dredging project. I will be quite brief, and I'll also answer any questions. I have had conversations as late as today with members or staff from South Suburban Park District and Urban Drainage District regarding the matter. The dredging work is complete. The lake is being filled now. It's from drainage coming off of Little's Creek. We don't use any treated or fire hydrant water to fill the lake. It'll take about 6 weeks for the complete park restoration to occur. I'm being generous with that because if it takes less than that, I'm a hero. If it takes 6 weeks, I hit it right on the nose. If you have questions, I'll be glad to respond.
Bruce?
Charlie, and for the folks that are not totally familiar with that, when the dredging had to be ceased in the middle of the pond because of the prohibition about placing equipment into the pond, we end up with an island. Can you talk about that for a moment?
The estimate from the engineers is that the island will be mostly covered by water. The top of the island is actually 6 inches below what we believe is the top water level, but because the water level does fluctuate, on occasion, the top of that muck island may be exposed. But under normal conditions, most of it will be underwater.
Okay, Bruce?
Oh, you have? Since the park is already, I mean, I assume the mud island isn't particularly desirable. Since the park's already torn up, what prevents you guys, somebody taking a fire truck down there and destroying the island with a fire hose?
Couldn't be done, and it'd be a pretty good waste of water during a stage 1 drought condition.
But it wouldn't take more than 15 minutes.
I don't have the answer to that, Councilman. I don't know. I've never tried such action.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with having to pull the equipment out of the lake was sort of, this was an Army Corps of Engineers issue?
The permit that Urban Drainage had for doing this work stated that they could remove muck using equipment from the shore and not to enter into the lake. Entering the lake bottom to remove more material requires another permit, different from what was originally obtained. That permit could take 6 to 9 months to get. And as a result, the contractor who did enter the lake for a short time had to remove the equipment, and all work had to be done from the shoreline. As a result, there was some material left in the center of the lake that at the moment cannot be removed without getting a new permit, bringing a new contractor on site. And according to estimates between Urban Drainage and my staff, we're looking at somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000.
Right. So, well, I can foresee issues with having this mud island in the middle of this thing that I don't think anybody really, would like to deal with down the road. I guess I'm wondering if there's any creative conversations you guys could have with Urban Drainage to do something to maybe try to move the mud around a little bit so it's not like this, maybe it's flattened out.
There is a perception that as the water enters the lake and begins to fill, that island will begin to level out.
Yeah.
And the material will be moved around by the flow of the water. If we have a really good deluge rainstorm and we get that water in quickly, then more than likely that will occur. The anticipation is that possibly 6 inches of water will be covering that island. But as I stated, the water level fluctuates. Right. Not dramatically, but it does. One other interesting point is at most locations in the lake before the work was done, there was only about 12 to 14 inches of water. The lake was, for all practical purposes, dead. Mm-hmm. There was no live fish left in the lake at all.
Can we name the island? Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay, any more
You
questions?
want to set up a naming committee to do that?
Any more questions? Peggy?
Yeah, first I want to point out there is some water in there now, and the resident 2 white ducks are swimming. They were there when I walked down tonight, which is wonderful. And then there will be 3 million geese and a lot of other things there pretty soon, I'm sure. But my question is, with the Littles Creek itself, is there going to be some more work cleaning out some of the creek coming in? Because I noticed this morning when I was doing my walk and jog, some stuff that I think needs to come out.
Councilmember Cole has a good point, and I would say that right now the city has funds, and so does Urban Drainage, to do the next phase of the Littles Creek drainage improvements, which run from Windermere to Lake Avenue, which accomplished exactly what you talked about. and that is removal of a lot of the material in the drainage channel along Stern Parkway. Many people call it Stern Ditch, is where the material is going to be removed. Changing culverts and improving the drainage through there for exactly that purpose, to get the water to move quicker to get into the lake. As a result, we may see less material beginning to accumulate.
Well, right now, between Lake and the mouth of what I'll call the Stern Park Lake, there's some, I think, some log that's in there. There's some other debris that's accumulated fairly close to the mouth of the lake. So
It is anticipated we would remove all that material.
okay, super.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
And just one last relatively quick update on the board and commission task force, and we've got 3 council members who may also plan on speaking to this, but the task force has completed the revisions, proposed revisions for the advisory board, so that's fine arts, library, and museum, and we are starting to discuss the criteria for new boards or committees and have discussions about the different roles and responsibilities that those new committees that you may have, and even what terminology we may use for those. So we told the council we would update them periodically, and that is moving forward. We're having good, solid discussions and meeting basically every other week. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Kirsten?
I would just remind everyone that May 9th at 5:30 is the board and commission training. We're really looking forward to it. We did set it at 5:30 so that everyone can get to an important event that is being hosted by Historic Littleton Inc. and the Historical Preservation Board at 7 p.m. that same night. So everybody can attend both events.
Thank you. Councilmember Cole?
No more, thank you.
Jim?
South Platte Working Group had a very successful Earth Day event as well. It was a cleanup of the Big Dry Creek and South Platte River, and they got loads and loads and loads of trash. It also had the Be Involved Give Day project going on, where there were about 300 volunteers and planted about 220 trees along the banks of the river. One of the other topics that the foundation talked about was the speeders along the Mary Carter Greenway Trail, and how, particularly on weekends, they are really ignoring the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, and how they are intimidating walkers and bikers who are just out there leisurely traveling along. So there's a possibility we'd be looking for some more enforcement from not only in Littleton, but our neighbors as well.
And we, Mayor, if I may, the chief and I are in conversation on that, as well as some other traffic enforcement that the council has previously brought up. So,
thank you. And the last thing, we did talk about how the foundation can be of help to the South Platte Working Group number 2 project that's coming on. We'd like to continue to partner with that group. The Colorado Municipal League Executive Board, there will be a modest increase in dues coming next year, it'll be the first dues increase since 2008. There will be a discussion that will come about whether to give a rebate, as we've done the past few years, if you pay your dues early. That decision will be made when the new board takes position in June. We took positions on legislative bills, had updates on our workshops, our spring meetings, and the annual conference. And lastly, I attended the Arapahoe County Mayors and Commissions Awards banquet. They gave out 7 scholarships, one of which was to a young man from Options High School here in Littleton. The Dr. Cog report, we had a presentation by Wade Buchanan from the Bell Policy Center on Colorado Reform Roundtable. His group would like to meet with us at our convenience to talk further about how municipalities can get involved in this process. We took also actions on legislative bills, had a presentation on aging initiatives, and also on the congressional budget actions that will have an effect on Dr. Cog. the House of Representatives created a resolution, a binding resolution on themselves about how they're going to fund programs in the future. It will mean, if the Senate goes along with it, a 25 to 60% cut in transportation funding for the state. And you know how bad that we need those funds. And will practically eliminate all funding to the Area Agency on Aging that will come from the federal government. The other item that's in the federal legislation works right now is a elimination of the federal gas tax and turn those over to the states to administer. That would mean for Colorado, it would go to a 48.9 cents per gallon gas tax. Under Tabor, we have to go to a statewide vote to increase it from the current 22 cents we have now. So keep alert. We'll see whether that legislation has any wings and gets out of Congress.
Thank you. Bruce?
I attended the Littleton Fire Protection District Board meeting on the 23rd of April. Couple of the things that were discussed, just a quick clarification from staff that the station engine 13 acquisition is still proceeding apace. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, that was my understanding as well. And Cindy Hathaway and Terry Nolan met with City Manager Penny in terms of reviewing steps forward as far as the new fire partner contract is concerned.
That's correct. And Dave Oppenheim was not able to make that meeting, so I have a separate meeting scheduled now with him, one-on-one, because he had a scheduling conflict. So,
okay, terrific.
Yes, for exactly that purpose of rebuilding that relationship, if you will, and talking about where we go forward in here.
Good.
And so the council is aware we're really including our partners early on in conversations, operational conversations, detailed as we move into the budget cycle, that type of thing. So they'll be with us as we present that budget to the council.
Okay, outstanding. The liaisonship to the Fire Protection Board, District Board, is more of a voluntary arrangement, as in something that I had raised my hand to do a few years ago. At a point in time when the lines of communication were not what they are today, and prior to the entering into the negotiations for the new fire partner contract, we talked about this at the meeting on the 23rd with their board, and pretty much mutually agreed that there's not as much of a need for a representative from the city council to attend every meeting. They don't really have any overt representation from Centennial or any of the counties that they're involved with. And while it is an open meeting, I think we mutually agreed that perhaps I'll attend every, say, third meeting once a quarter, just to keep a visibility to the thing, just because it's an interesting meeting to go attend, but not as it is with the other liaisonships that we have with our council-appointed boards, the need to attend every meeting being so critical. So I just mentioned that for informational purposes for everyone else. That's it.
Thank you. Jerry?
The Littleton Housing Authority does have a rental program available for those who are in certain census tracts within the city of Littleton and who are also willing to participate in the Section 8 program. But if they will call the Littleton Housing Authority, they can give you more information on that, on helping you to upgrade your property a little bit. Also, the Littleton Historic Preservation Board will be holding their annual presentation for the Historic Preservation Awards, and that will be Wednesday, May 9th at the Town Hall Arts Center. And last but not least, the Field Elementary will be having a leadership day. Now, Field Elementary is not in the city of Littleton. However, 80% of its students do come from the city of Littleton. So that leadership day will be, it is Tuesday, May 8th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. That is it.
Thank you. Phil?
Yes, with the South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce, and I know that's a membership organization, but it really is focused on the economic vitality of the South Metro region, and the Business Retention and Expansion Group has been continuing its interviews of businesses, some of which are located in the city, and in this past week and a half have been in a position to connect them with some of our elected officials, both at the state, the county, and the federal level, which they were very appreciative of. In addition to that, the Legislative Action Committee took up, and City Manager may help me on the number, but I think it's House Bill 12-1171 having to deal with the Water Quality Control Commission.
1161.
1161. So I was just off a digit or so. Took that to the Legislative Action Committee, and for their own good reasons, also took a position of support, took that forward to their lobbyist, and so it was taken with even more force to at least our representatives. And who knows what's going to happen in our waning days of the state legislature at this point in time. Did want to remind the council, as well as anyone else that might be listening, that the South Suburban Park and Rec District election is on May 8th. For those of you that haven't yet requested a mail-in ballot, if you do have one of those, they do have to be returned to the district by 7 p.m. on May 8th. And Kay Geithner, who we've had a chance to work with over the last 2 years, is retiring from the board as she is term limited on the board. And then just to add a little bit to what the city manager had for the boards and commissions task force, one of the things that we have done is taken a look at the boards, commissions, authorities, committees that we do have, and have really looked at them kind of coalescing in three major groups, one of those being the advisory group that the city manager mentioned. The other is the quasi-judicial group that has some authorities with regard making semi-judicial decisions, and then also a third group being the action committees that are tied up in doing good things. So.
Thank you. Bruce?
I don't have anything to add tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is citizens' appearances, and we have a couple of guest citizens this evening. Councilmember Cole, I'll ask you to go ahead and read. This was something that you had recommended on the agenda. You want to go ahead and read the communication?
Yes, and are you wanting people?
Yeah, I'll go down.
Well, this is a real pleasure for me. This evening, the Littleton City Council is pleased to recognize Littleton Public Schools students who recently competed in the state spelling bee. They are Tom Herndon. Tom is an 8th grade student at Newton Middle School. He was the district spelling bee winner, and this was his second time to compete at the state contest. His mother says he has a natural gift for spelling and has been able to spell words he didn't understand since kindergarten. He will attend Arapahoe High School in the fall and enjoys science and social studies. Lucy Haggard attends Newton Middle School, and we don't have more detailed information on the other students here. Alyssa Meyer attends Euclid Middle School. Pardon? Yes, if you're here, would you come down? Lizzie Marquez attends Goddard Middle School. Christian Olson attends Wilder Elementary School. Isabella Revilla, or Revilla, which is it? Revilla, attends Sandberg Elementary School. The council also wishes to recognize the 4 Littleton Public Schools instructors whose students blew away the competition at the recent Technology Student Association state competition. There were 700 students from across Colorado who competed. 160 of them, that's about 23% of them, were from LPS. The results of this year's competition and the instructors are Pamela Wilkins, Littleton High School. Ms. Wilkins started the chapter at Littleton 19 years ago and has taken first place in state 10 of those years, including winning first place in 2012 as the Colorado High School Chapter of the Year. 38 of her 50 students competed in state this year, and the winners will head to Nashville, Tennessee, June 17th to compete in the national competition. Evan Bidoff, is that the right way to say your name? And Larry Grimes, Euclid Middle School. Mr. Bidoff and Mr. Grimes are the co-instructors at Euclid Middle School. Their chapter was named Middle School Chapter of the Year for 2012 at the recent state competition. Robert Udaley, is that right? Goddard Middle School. Goddard Middle School earned second place in the Middle School of the Year contest. This is the first time in 7 years that Goddard did not win first place. So look out next year, I guess. For 40 students competed at the state competition. The Littleton City Council congratulates these bright and motivated students for their accomplishments at the state spelling bee and commends the LPS teachers who led their students to such outstanding accomplishments at the competition. We are proud of you for so impressively representing the city and your schools.
Does competition help?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Congratulations.
Okay, this is now the time for unscheduled public appearances. If any, this is an opportunity for any citizen to express an opinion or ask questions regarding city services, council policy, or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. We do have three public hearings, so you'll have an opportunity to speak when those come up on the agenda. So if you have anything other than that, you're welcome to come down at this time. Please state your name and address for the record. Seeing no one. Oh, do we have someone?
I was just going to invite everybody to come to the historic Littleton.
Well, would you come down to the mic and introduce yourself and not yell from the crowd?
Hey, third time's the charm. Good evening. I'm Chuck Reed, the chairman of the Historic Preservation Board, and as always, I would just like to thank the council for honoring our heritage and paying attention to that as we prepare for our future, because we learn a lot from our past, and certainly next week is going to be a celebration. And I would just specifically like to invite you to come celebrate National Historic Preservation Month as Historic Littleton, Inc. and the Historic Preservation Board present this year's annual Historic Preservation Awards at the Town Hall Arts Center next Wednesday night at 7. And so hopefully the third time is the charm and it makes it onto your electronic calendars. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chuck, and congratulations on being named chair. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, we will move to our consent agenda, item 7A. The City Council, this is a motion to approve professional service agreement with Julie Anderson. And City Council is requested to approve this agreement with Julie Anderson for services as municipal court judge for a 2-year term, which begins May 2012. The agreement is the same as the current agreement and is consistent with the practices of having agreements with the city manager and the city attorney, who also serve at the pleasure of council. This agreement would extend her term of service or renew her term of service through May 2014. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve consent agenda item 7A.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion is unanimous, or the vote is unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, item 8A, City Attorney.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving the inclusion of the Blue Ribbon Stables and Boussard properties located at 2670 and 2680 West Main Street to the Main Street Historic District.
Glenn?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Well, I won't belabor this too much. I did a quick presentation at your last meeting 2 weeks ago, and then as you remember back in July, the council actually voted to include this property into the Main Street District. But alas, there was a contingent on that, that if the sale didn't go through, then the property would revert out of the Main Street District. So we have a new owner, Mr. Todd Little of Scottsdale, has purchased the building, has requested to be opting into the district. Just to give you a little bit of background, the opt-in district was set up by council, I believe, about, I think it was 5 years ago. We recently have reviewed that ordinance with the Historic Preservation Board. There's incentives to opt into the Main Street District, and one of those is you get a break on the sales tax for the materials that you purchase to rebuild the facade of the building. There is a Main Street grant program that you can make an application, and the Historic Preservation Board can approve a grant. I think our total funding was $25,000 for this year. And there's also different parking standards. And what those parking standards are is for an existing building, there is not a requirement for additional parking regardless of the change in use. And in this case, this building is projected to be the first floor being retail uses. There would not be, normally, whether they're in the district or not in the district, there would not be an increase in the parking standards. However, they do intend to, or they are looking at a second phase that would add additional, I think, a couple of residential units above the Blue Ribbon Stables building. In that case, for an additional square feet, then the parking standards are cut in half. So that's the incentives for joining the district, and what's required is additional review. In this case, this project went through 2 hearings with Historic Preservation Board. They unanimously approved it last night, and some of the improvements that the owner is doing is he's putting brand new storefronts in the building, new doors. He's actually, they went out and utilized the chemical method to remove the paint off the Boussard Motor Company, so they're going to return that back to its original brick facade. I think it'll be a real nice addition to the west end of Main Street. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the second reading and adoption of this property into the Main Street District. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions, Council? Bruce?
Quick question on this chemical process is some sort of hazardous material. It's being, they're going to do the normal sequester it with plastic and so forth and so on from a health, safety, and welfare perspective?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, it's also an expensive process from my understanding. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Bill?
And just, Glenn, to belabor the parking, for the use that they're planning on the first floor right now, no additional parking would be required. Is that because they have some of their own allowance level? Is that correct?
Right. The way the code is now, considering the previous use, and if it stays all retail on the first floor, there's no difference as far as code, as far as requiring parking. Now, I will mention that right now the opportunity is they have a bay door because it was an auto service facility. They intend to put a storefront there and close up that driveway, which would actually provide an opportunity for, I think, up to 2 additional spaces on the street. So they will be able to add on-street parking. Unfortunately, we don't give them credit for that, and with the new addition, with what we've talked about, they can meet those parking standards.
And so they're actually adding to the inventory of parking, and then when they get to the second floor, they're only, how many units are they planning for?
2 units.
Okay, and what provisions are there for parking when they may utilize those residential units?
Right now, the plan is that they would actually park them underneath the building, or within the building, I should say, as a parking garage in the back, so.
So no additional parking would be needed, even though being in the historic district, they would have an allowance?
Well, they would provide additional parking, but on their site.
Right, on their site. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing. And if there's anybody who, in the audience, who wants to come down and speak to this issue, please do so now. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that the ordinance including the Blue Ribbon Stables and the Broussard Motor Company buildings located at 2670 and 2680 West Main Street in the Main Street Historic District be approved.
Second.
Peggy?
Debbie?
Okay. Jim?
Since there was no testimony given by representatives of the owner, Glenn, do you know when they're going to be starting any of the processes of renovating this building and getting it ready to be occupied?
As soon as possible, I'm told.
As soon as possible, okay.
Yes,
That's
they
what
hope
I
to be
wanted.
in review in our department in 2 weeks, so quickly.
Thank you.
And Glenn, just a semi-detailed question. As they look to renovate some of the storefront, I'm kind of presuming, since the Historic Preservation Board took a look at that whatever changes that might be there for the storefront would be in accordance with some of the facade requirements for members in the district.
Absolutely. In fact, that was one of the key reasons why they continued it, in order to get more detail on those storefronts. So they're very happy at this point.
Thank you.
Bruce?
To the extent, if you get it in 2 weeks, what's your expectation in terms of how quickly we can turn it around?
Well, boy, we would easily match that. So we would have it out in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Good
All right.
answer.
Thank you.
Peggy?
So then again, I appreciate as soon as possible, but do we have a range, like 6 months, 3 months, 5 years? I'm teasing, but is there some kind of range of when this might get finished, be ready? If all goes well?
Glenn, you might want to invite down, I think this is the applicant's architect? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Steve Moore?
My understanding from the owner.
And could you state your name and who you're with?
Moore, Commercial Building Services.
Thank you.
Architect. My understanding from the owner, in fact, his daughter, who is in-state, is intending to be one of the residents within this unit, and her intention is to have her shop operational by October, to be in advance of the holiday season. So that's what everybody is driving to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion to approve the ordinance, including the Blue Ribbon Stables and Broussard Motor Companies in the downtown Littleton Main Street Historic District, and a second. Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion carries.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, moving to agenda item 8A.
8B.
B, yep,
This is
8B.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, granting permanent utility easement to Quest Corporation.
Thank you. Charlie? Thank you.
Council, the purpose of this ordinance is to grant an easement to Quest Corporation doing business as CenturyLink for a telephone facility box on Shepherd Avenue near the City of Littleton Community Garden property. As explained previously, the facility already exists, and the corporation would pay the city $500 for a 200-square-foot easement. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to respond.
Bruce?
Charlie, this is the ordinance states it's a permanent utility easement. it's sort of a, I guess, a nit, if you will, but it's normal to give permanent easements on this type of thing, I assume, or is there any logic for not making it, quote unquote, permanent?
There's no logic for not making it permanent. That facility will be there as long as the telephone system exists. And if we say we put a temporary period on it, they have to come back and ask for it all over again.
Well, I guess I was thinking in terms of 50 years or something. I mean, who knows what's going to happen
We have
down the
permanent
road.
easements for utilities all over the city.
Okay, so it's just normal that we make
Every
them permanent.
property in Littleton has a permanent easement on it for utility service.
Okay.
Bill?
And Charlie, just to follow up on that, is from our prior discussion, my recollection is that if at some point in time the utility no longer needs the easement, we can work to reappropriate or
The
withdraw
corporation
the
would then quitclaim it back to the city.
quickly. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, and if there's no one signed up on the roster, if there's anybody who'd like to come down at this time, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
I move to approve the ordinance granting an easement to Quest Corporation-owned city property be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? Ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion is approved.
We certainly are agreeing tonight.
An easy night.
Okay, now 11A.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending and repealing portions of the City Code, Title 6, Chapter 4, pertaining to general police offenses.
Okay, this is also a first reading and public hearing. Kirsten, do you want to introduce this?
I do. The purpose of the changes that are being proposed tonight on first reading are to really do two things. One, to reorganize the offenses, and also to update what we have not updated in a very long time to comply with state law. The reorganization is going to do two things for us. It's going to be easier to keep up with updates in state law, and it's going to help the police because they deal with both municipal law and state law. One thing that is extremely important to understand here is we do not have an option with the language. And as you know, state law can be ambiguous at times and not always clear, but it has been interpreted in the law, and we need to keep the language that the state uses. And the vast majority of these provisions are mirroring exactly state law. The other thing I just would like to do is let you know that this was an extremely collaborative effort because it was a big endeavor and something that we hadn't looked at in a long time and needed to look at. And we've got a representative from the police department here, Lieutenant Cooper, who spent a lot of time with the city prosecutor, Tricia McCarthy, and also our intern. The city attorney's office had an intern. He is quite amazing. In his third year of law school, 2 small children, has like 3 or 4 jobs, and has been very helpful in this as well. So I may defer to them if you have any other specific questions.
Council, any questions? Bruce?
I'd just like to comment that this is really a great undertaking, and I'm so pleased that we've done it now. In the police department, in the past, because of the way that ordinances were added, they were added in a patchwork process. So it was very difficult to train somebody. It was very difficult for a police officer right in the midst of making decisions to find the information that they needed because it wasn't necessarily filed in a way that made sense. So individual officers came up with cheat sheets and ways to find them quickly, and it was really just not a very efficient way to work. So for the efficiency and then also for the great review that's been done to make sure that they're still current, they're still constitutional, they still reflect what the state wording is in those, and those have been up to the test. I want to thank this group for doing this, also that it's so collaborative. It really makes a difference when police officers working with the prosecutors, working with the judge can all have an agreement so that the way in which charging occurs is not going to be an issue for discussion. It's established in a process. So thank you to the group.
I should just add to that Judge Anderson was very involved as well, even though he's not here tonight. So thank you for those comments.
Phil?
Yeah, that's the footnote that I would have is, as the notes came to us in our council packages, definitely came from the city attorney's office, and absolutely excited to hear that our judiciary, the prosecution, and the police department were all involved in the process. And you can all just kind of nod your heads to reinforce what Kirsten has mentioned to us, so that it indeed has been that kind of a process. So I'm seeing all those heads nod, and that's reassuring.
Jim?
I have two questions. On page 5 of the ordinance, on line number 9, I did ask the city attorney earlier today if she would put the last word in that line in the definitions for reading number 2. All the rest of those terms that are listed there in that paragraph are defined, but the last word of line 9 was not, and just asked that it be added as part of the definitions. Secondly, on page 36 and 37,
On what page?
36 and 37. Had to let all these computers catch up with my reading. Some advantages to what I do.
Ouch.
I can twist it too.
That's an inanimate object. Huh?
On page 36, on line 30, and on page 37, on line 16. Both of them address graffiti with about under the age of 18. Well, statistically, graffiti, it doesn't stop at age 18. It keeps going on. So my question to the attorney would be, how do we address people who are older than 18, because this is dealing with youth in this part of the ordinance. How do we address the older ones?
So we don't criminalize the mere possession of adults, but the possession of the graffiti tools will become evidence in the event that an adult is charged with the crime of graffiti.
So is it a misdemeanor?
I guess it depends on how the crime is charged. It could be. Depends on the dollar value, I'm being told by the experts back here.
Okay. I just want to make sure we cover that. Graffiti is one of those things that just turns me purple.
It is definitely covered in the law.
Okay.
Bruce?
The magnitude of what you guys have done here is very impressive. For my own curiosity, can you, Kirsten, maybe give us a couple examples of what changed, what is being done in here, how what's being proposed here on the first reading ordinance changes what's substantively in the existing code, just so I asked that question because I'm sort of sitting up here having not gone back and contrasted the two sets of documents.
You know, there is not a lot of change substantively herein. If you look in the council communication, I list 1 through 6 of the reorders, so offenses against persons,
right,
public property, public peace, and I don't need to go through them all. But that, if you look at Title 18 in the criminal code, that's the way the criminal code is arranged. So that's really the biggest portion of this. But then we have, for instance, with public nudity, if you look at that particular provision, it used to be called indecent exposure, which is now a crime that will get you in the sex offender registry, and we don't want that in our code. So we've changed it to public nudity.
Okay.
We did a little bit of updating to the interference with, I think it's called school operations, and there are one key thing that we wanted to do that we have herein is the harassment. You'll notice that it now covers cyberbullying, which is really important for the schools and the police department, and that was a change in state law that we didn't capture. But mainly it doesn't do a lot of substantive changes to the code.
Okay, so I guess just having Well, then let me ask, I guess, a follow-on question then. If there were some changes to the code, what was your guys' thought process in terms of republishing the entire sections, all of the code sections that are in this ordinance? I mean, why was it easier to republish the whole thing as opposed to just pick the stuff that you were changing?
Mainly because of the reorder. We did a very, very comprehensive reorder, so we're going to have all of our charges in these general offenses will now be renumbered. So that's a huge impact that we'll have to deal with in staff, but we've got that covered.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Did I already do that?
No.
Okay. This is a first reading. I know. This is a first reading on a public hearing, so if anybody wants to come down and address council on this issue, please do so now. Seeing no one, I need a motion. I'll close the public hearing, and I need a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the ordinance on first reading, repealing and reenacting portions of Chapters 3, 4, and 7 of Title 6 of the City Code, and schedule the second reading to occur on May 15th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm sorry, did Councilmember Cole second that?
Yes.
Sorry, I croaked it out.
Any discussion? Okay, ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion is unanimous.
Okay. At this time, council will go back into their exec session. We recessed it to conduct our meeting. We will go back into exec. This meeting, we will adjourn after the exec is completed, but we will not return to this room to conduct any public business. So, good night. I can't adjourn.